It is rightly said that some people are meant for dynamic careers. They thrive on building new things, helping new people, advising folks, probably just a change in their day to day. Today with us, we have one such hustler. Today's episode brings to you Andre Albuquerque. Andre is the founder of 1 Month PM, where the product builders of next generation are being equipped with relevant skills through cohorts on product management. Andre is also the founder of productleaders.co and productmanagertemplates.com and is an operating advisor for Shilling. Andre has been teaching at Catalica Lisbon School of Business and Economics for 5 years now and has previously led products at companies like Kitch and Uniplaces, among others, but including Google, where he headed strategic partnership for mobile. Welcome to the show, Andre. How are you doing today?
I'm very good for come. Appreciate the invite. Excited for this conversation.
Lovely. I have been looking forward to this chat for a while. I am going to jump straight into it. I have a lot of questions for you, but the first one top of my mind is how do you manage to do so much? Like, I have seen you answer this question in the past. You have your hands in maybe 20 things. At one point of time, I was also someone who just wanted to try new things out. But I think somewhere down the line, I probably was not as good at managing that or something. What has been the key to your, like, what's the secret sauce here? How is Andre doing so many things in one go?
Yeah, I think the answer is simpler than it seems. I just found my own way of managing my own to-dos and my backlog, my personal backlog. And it's a bit of a mindset of like 1% every day, meaning that you kind of don't have time to waste any moment, any hour, any minute. If you have stuff to do that helps you progress, if it helps add that 1% today, and if you're relentless about this search for creating, for producing, for testing things out, I think that's the fuel to be able to do so much stuff. Of course, it's also important to understand that if you're not focused, that progress is not going to go in the correct direction. So I'd say finding some focus time, finding the topic for the day or topic for the hour that allows you to kind of zone out from everything else and guarantee that you put your whole mind, your whole focus into that one thing that you decided to work on. I think that makes a big difference.
I love it. So zooming in while zooming out, and not a lot of people put it that way. But Andre, out of all the things that you do, you have so many things. You talk about templates, and I have a lot of questions and personal curiosity around how you define these templates and what actually is your POV when it comes to templates. But before we actually even get to that, I want to ask one thing, which is out of all the things you do, advising, teaching, building things on your own, mentoring folks, what is it that is most exciting for you personally and why? And in there, I also want to talk about what exactly is your experience been with mentorship, whether it is the same thing that's most exciting or not. That's related to a follow-up question. But yeah.
Yeah. So I think the thing that excites me the most is helping anyone who has the ambition to improve themselves, guide them towards
Hmm.
becoming that better version of themselves. Of course, I narrow my focus on the product domain. That is
Yeah.
with product managers, with the teams I managed, with the people that come through my product university at 1 Month PM. So I think the common theme is creating, designing, implementing, and getting people to experience the tools that help them become better versions of the product manager within. So I'd say like this is the thing that excites me the most. And actually every single one of the projects, products, and companies that I've built and run are tied to this common theme. 1 Month PM on the education side, templates on the tool side, the collective on opening up opportunities and empowering people side, even investing. I work a lot with with a portfolio of the VC I work at Shilling, and it's all about improving their own execution on the product side and helping them become better product versions of themselves.
Does it ever get like too much? As in, doesn't it get too much? As in, like advising sometimes can be very, very, very intensive.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. I think if I didn't find a way to focus on one topic at a time, even if it's just for a single day or for a block of hours, then yeah, it would be overwhelmed. But the fact that when you have to deal with so much different stuff at the same time, you're able to actually create barriers and boundaries to guarantee that things aren't distracting you from whatever you decided to commit and to deliver, then it helps balance out the overwhelming. But of course, you need to have a good method of organizing your thoughts, your backlog, your priorities. Otherwise, you're going to get derailed. It's going to be chaotic.
And is that how you look at templates? Because one look at your timeline and I see the word templates floating all around. And I like it because not a lot of people have that strong viewpoint. What can you just like break it down for
Yeah.
us? Like what is templates? How do you see them?
Yeah, sure. So I think templates, they're a bit like frameworks, right? They exist to kind of create harmony in chaotic environments, right? I think they can guide. They shouldn't be the playbook or they shouldn't be the one way that you do without actually applying any critical thinking. They should be a way that you then take, apply to your own context, ask the question, what makes sense, what doesn't make sense, and how can you iterate on top of it? But they should be a starting point, not the end point. Now, it's also important to mention that the same way that frameworks and templates help create harmony in chaotic environments, in environments where there's no chaos, imagine a place where you're just building from scratch, 0 to 1, there's nothing. Actually implementing templates and frameworks is going to be net negative for you, because you're going to create rigidity. It's going to remove flexibility and your ability to adapt very quickly, because you need to follow a certain format or process. And that just makes you be slower at learning, at executing, at shipping. So I think I'm a big believer of templates and frameworks as a way to guide your mental models, your way of executing. But it's also important to look to your context and ask the question, is this going to help me accelerate or not? And act accordingly.
Hi everyone, welcome to Just CruncIt. Here we talk about all things data, AI, analytics, product, business, and everything in between. Some very hard questions, some very honest answers. This is for you if you are an expert or just getting started. This is for you if you are even feeling left behind in this ever-evolving time of AI and technologies all around us. Wow. What I love, and I would like to call it out here about you, is that you have your hands in so many things. Like we've been talking about it for the last 5 minutes, context switching, trying so many things, but all of them have a unified theme. I see product or product management at the very core of everything that you're doing. And I have been a part of many communities. Everyone today has a cohort on AI. Everyone today has a cohort on like MBA. Everyone today has a cohort on design. Everyone has a cohort on like all the new cool things, right? Like at some point of time, people were even teaching you cryptocurrency trading and whatnot. I want to ask you why the focus on product management? Like, what's the story behind the cohort, the way things are laid out? Why product managers for that matter? And then let's get into the follow up, which is a personal curiosity of mine, which is again, as we are in this age of AI, how are you even looking at the space? What is the skill set that's relevant for someone, let's say, 5 years later, where things are changing, technology is evolving? I myself, as a founder, time after time end up sleeping at night and thinking and waking up to thoughts of, oh, is this really going to be predictable? Can I even rely on it and whatnot? But let's take a step back. Why the product management focus?
Yeah. So the way I think about this is we're going in a direction that, like, a lot of the hard skills of the last 10 years or so within building digital products, they're being commoditized, right? You think about code, now AI is coding for you. You think about design, you see a lot of the LLM models designing for you. You see a lot of tools that allow you to design UIs from prompts, right? So a lot of the things that in the past product managers would need others to execute, now they're becoming empowered to actually execute by themselves. Now, will that allow them to build top 1% products? No, because the last 10% of execution, that probably needs some editing that today AI isn't able to do. But the first 90%, 95%, just a couple of years ago, you wouldn't be able to execute if you had the technical chops, right? But I believe next years, this is going to become a commodity, right? Like every single person is able to generate code, generate a product, generate design, to generate an insight, data, to make decisions, build, ship, get customers, and grow, right? And I think AI is going to empower that. So I think that creates a lot of power to anyone who understands the product process, that understands how to think product, that understands how to speak with users, with customers, understand really the details that drive them to adopt, use, buy a product, which often is unknown to a lot of the people who focus their craft on building, on executing, the skill, the engineer, the designer. So I think I focus a lot on product because this trend is bring the power into people who are great at understanding and building and thinking product. So that's kind of the focus.
Yeah, I almost am tempted to ask you this. So for someone who's listening to this and let's say has gone through a rigorous 2 year course, right, like on product management, of course, in their head, the first reaction is, oh no, this doesn't work. And by the way, for the record, I am in favor of micro learning. Like I myself am a part of a lot of cohorts. I have skipped the traditional way of picking up skills, and I think I'm doing just fine as far as those skills and their implementation go. But what's your take on that? Like, how do you decide on squishing it all into a month? And my take before you even get into your POV is that I don't think all of the stuff that people learn necessarily in a 2 year window or a 5 year window, you can have a 10 year long course. It even makes sense. Like there is only 20% of the stuff or 10% of the stuff that you apply. The rest of the things are good for theory, but application happens as you go about building things, as you go about running your business, as you go about contributing to the larger team that you are a part of. But very curious on what your take there is, because I'm sure this question has come your way in the past.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. And just a disclaimer here, I teach at university where that traditional method of like 3 or 5 or 7 years applied. But then again, I run a product university at 1 PM, and our method is completely different, right? So I think I covered the full spectrum of possibilities. And what I feel about this is you need to be in constant learning, you need to be in constant acquisition of skills. You need to be always kind of testing what you know, what you don't know yet, and see how others are doing. I think it's see what good looks like so you can apply in your own way of building. I think that's extremely important. Now, you mentioned something which I also found really important, which is if you don't actually get to use that knowledge, then your ability to retain it and actually make it part of your tool set is going to be really, really hard. And again, this is why I focus a lot on product, and I focus a lot on the tools, the new tooling that exists in the world that allows you to build a product, because that allows you to actually put in practice all the stuff that we cover. And not a lot of other types of courses, types of content actually allow you to do that. This one does. And I think that's maybe the best way of optimizing for retention. And I agree. Like, if you're going to condense a lot of information in a window and you have no context on that window, meaning you're not actually applying all those things, your retention is going to be super low. If you're able to spread out that and be exposed to environments and situations where you get to experience and put that in practice, that's beautiful. You're going to retain a lot of the content. More importantly, it's going to become a skill that you have that you can wield into any future scenario or context.
Agreed, 100% in alignment with you. But I have a connected follow up to it. So today, as I'm building my own company, I can reflect back on numerous folks who did a very commendable job. They probably were doing something around AI, the traditional way of AI, the traditional machine learning stuff. They built a company, very tough problem to crack, scaled the company to 15, 20 millions in revenue. ChatGPT came, everything suddenly is no longer a big deal. Like what they were doing, no one wants to pay for that. And these companies, unfortunately, the founders who had like toiled and they had no way of like probably seeing it into that future, they are now left just struggling. They have to pivot. Some of them are shutting down, some of them are like just very demotivated. Now the question that I have here for you is, in this evolving landscape, while the core idea that, hey, as long as you know the basics and you go about implementing things as they come by, you would still do a very fine job as a product manager goes in, what is that product manager of future going to do? Because all of these companies that I'm talking about, they were not like one person $1 million businesses. These were companies where a product manager actually also thought, did research, intensive roadmaps, like you had these development cycles, you look at competitors, you're looking at all of these evolution, and still something happened. And maybe that thing is again going to happen. Like today, as I'm building my own thing, I keep asking my question, okay, is it going to be GPT-5 or 6 or 7? When am I going to hear the statement that, okay, this is no longer a big deal, Vikram? So what is that product manager of future going to do? Like, and from there, I want to like dive specifically into the skills, like for someone who is an aspiring PM listening to this, how do they prepare better for that future?
Yeah, so let me give you two answers to that question. The first answer is on, all right, so I'm building something and suddenly there's a platform shift and this, I don't know, an OpenAI of the world suddenly does what my product used to do. I think, look, that's going to happen. That has been happening for a long, long time. I mean, before OpenAI doing that was Apple doing that, right? Every new iOS release, it would kill hundreds of startups that were offering a product, and suddenly the iOS now can do that by default, and there's no value proposition on selling that. I think the answer there is narrowing, right? Because yeah, maybe the first 60 to 70% of the value is now being offered by the platform almost in a native default way. But true monetization is not on the first 70 to 80%, it's on the last 20%. And often the platforms, they don't go into the 20%. And they don't go in the 20% from a positioning standpoint, meaning I can understand what you actually need. And the platform is not going to understand that. You need to understand that yourself as a customer. And that gap in between the customer really understanding and exploring the platform as a whole to solve that deep problem, and you being able to position yourself as, I really deeply understand and I've adapted my product to the platform to really answer that specific need. That's narrowing. I think there's still a lot of opportunity. It just requires narrowing, positioning, really understanding the magic in between the details. So I think there's still a way of fighting yourself against that redundancy just because there's an evolution or an update. If you do rely on the first 70 or 80% to monetize, then yeah, you're in a lot of risk. And I think that kind of ties to the second part of this answer, which is the product managers of the future understand that 70 to 80% is the commodity. It doesn't actually matter that much. It's almost like the pipes in a hotel which run the hot water. Like, you expect that to exist, but you have a beautiful pipe or hotter water. I mean, that just isn't the thing that's going to change the game. You got to go for the last 10 to 20%. And I think in a situation where you have to do that, but at the same time, budgets from companies are way tighter than they were or out of this ZERP era. I mean, you're probably going to have 1/5 or 1/10 of the product talent and the budget to pay for it within a company. And that means you need to become what I call a bulletproof product manager. And that is a person who actually is able to execute every single role of what in the past was a product organization, whether that's product management, whether that's research, whether that's product marketing, product operations, whether that's applying no-code tools to build some prototypes. You got to do full stack. The same way we have full stack engineers, we got to have full stack product managers. And it's going to give you so much power and honestly a premium that you want to yield that as a tool to just build that last 10 to 20% that's going to keep you from losing to platform commoditization.
Yeah, but do you today in your curriculum, as you teach people product management and in general being a product leader, do you in your curriculum already have, let's say, ChatGPT as a way of thinking? And ChatGPT is just a random example, could be any LLM for that matter. But the product manager of the last decade was always using these tools to sort of, the thinking was still happening in their brain, right? Like these tools were creating different views. It was a way of like looking at data in a better way. Today, ChatGPT can sort of brainstorm with you. And that brainstorming sometimes is as good as a human being or as good as a peer. And I just keep wondering if we are actually moving to that era where we are going to probably be in much more sync with these intelligent systems, and they play a more significant role in defining what's next.
Yeah, so yes. So the first answer to that, yes, we incorporate a lot of like the how to use this tooling to expand your capability. But I actually disagree that we're going into the era. We're already in that era for quite a few years because, I mean, ChatGPT as a companion in terms of thinking is just an evolution of having Google as a search engine to actually access information that you in the past didn't easily be able to access it, right? Like if you go to our grandparents and say, yeah, everything is like a search away and I have almost infinite knowledge. I mean, it's very similar to GPT. It's just a different paradigm, a different experience, right? So I see it more as an evolution. And I think everyone's going to transition to have this. I mean, it can be a tutor, it can be a companion, it can be a brainstorm, peer, whatever you call it. I mean, as humans, we are always very pragmatic at solving our own problems. And if we have this tool available to kind of rubber duck, as kind of a concept of engineering, to rubber duck with us to get to better answers and to accelerate our ability to get to the answer and then execute, I think that's just a normal evolution of what we've been doing for the last 20 years with Google.
Yeah. Wow. But you talked about a full stack PM, right? Like now that full stack PM, what does that mean? Does that mean the PM is also doing data analysis? The PM is also doing like part of development. The PM is also doing strategy. Can you double down on
Yeah,
that
of
for us?
course, of course. So, in the end of the day, I see the role of the PM as the person who needs to kind of fill the gaps to make sure that we ship the product that solves the problem and gets the company from today to success, right? The thing is, with a lot less people in the organization and a leaner organization, you won't have as many of the specialist roles that you've had in the last few years. You won't have a data analyst here. You won't have a product marketing specialist there. You won't have a growth hacker on the other side. You're going to have a much leaner team, which means that each person on the team needs to embrace a lot more of the Venn diagram of jobs and roles within the organization, right? And a full stack PM in the end of the day is both the person that has a lot of these skills from the ability to run research and discovery and understanding how to do it well, how to run interviews, to running strategy and tie it to the business needs and the business strategy, to be able to communicate and be a great storyteller across the org, but also the ability to do great product marketing, being the voice of the market, to run data analysis and insights and actually crunch numbers, to then peer and partner with engineering and have enough, at least enough technical savviness to actually be a proxy decision maker with engineering, and at a certain point to actually use no code or low code to build some proof of concepts and prototypes, because often the experience is worth 1,000 pull requests or Jira tickets, right? So your ability to do all of this is just gonna give you leverage to make better decisions, to get the product out faster for a much lower cost, get higher return to the company, and accelerate versus all the other competitors who are probably larger, slower, have a lot more dependencies than you, and that's how you technically win the market. So that's how I see it as the full stack product manager. I call it the bulletproof PM, because then you become unstoppable. You're able to actually move the entire mountain by yourself almost.
Yeah, I love that terminology, bulletproof VM. And I think like the first time I ran into that was also via you. But I have to ask you one more question here, Andre. So as you're talking, and I can see the energy oozing out of you, love it. There is this sense or a very clear cut signal that you are someone who has a very strong opinion on stuff, which is great. I love everyone should have very strong opinions. You can have some of them loosely held, but please have strong viewpoints. And what I'm coming to essentially is that as someone who has tried a lot of things, probably has experimented with half the things before you actually go in and talk about them in public, there is another side to all of the discussion we are having. These are established organizations, and unfortunately, no one is really talking about them. I am in the Bay Area. I've been spending for the past, I would say, a couple of months. I have been spending a lot of time on the ground talking to these data leaders, these CPOs and CROs that you see off in like famous blogs and so on. And off the record, there is in general a sense of being left out, right? Like there is a sense of massive shift. There is a new piece of technology. Suddenly, everyone wants to be AI powered. These positioning changes don't come easy. These organizations, they move at their own pace, right? Like to a leader who's listening in today from these established organizations, what would you say is the right way for them to navigate this time? And the reason I'm asking this question to you is because I want to basically tune this and marry this with the question of, for a product manager who's working for these two companies, how can they be pivotal? Like for a small scale company, it's relatively easier. For a large scale company, if you're a product manager who's leading that charter where you want to like implement a change, but change happens slow, what are the things that they can do?
Yeah, so I think it's important to understand that the greatest accelerator or detractor within organizations, and this will expand the larger the organization is your execution culture, right? If you have an execution culture that's biased for action, that empowers people to make quick decisions, to ship stuff because they want to learn, that isn't afraid of building and investing resources to test stuff, to be exposed to customers. If your culture is biased for this, then probably you're going to look at the landscape and say, this change is good because it feels like it's actually giving us fuel to find out the 2.0 of us today, right? But if your culture is more focused on protecting the core advantage that you already have, to keep the existing processes and the comfort of everyone who relies on those processes to make decisions, if that's your culture, it's going to be a detractor. It's going to decelerate you, and you're in a weak position, because some nimbler team, smaller team is going to use all the tools that maybe you're not even aware that they exist to execute much faster. And that goes into the innovator's dilemma, right? It bottoms up, it steals your market up to a point that it's so big that you didn't even see them coming. So I think if I was a leader today, I would be asking, how is my execution culture helping or not helping us build, ship, change, adapt, evolve based on everything that is happening on the market? And if I had one last tip is, and let's assume there's a correlation between this product leader being someone who's been in a company for a while or having quite a few years of experience within the space, there is a correlation with younger, less experienced people wielding these tools, this new concept, this new technology, and actually being unbiased of the way we've always done stuff. So the more empowered they can be to actually build and ship, the more likely is your company to change that culture and to actually start building the next version of your product or of your business. It's important that you keep a role of an editor, someone who looks into the way it's being built, the rationale, the way it ties to the business that often these people don't know enough of, and edit accordingly, but empower them to actually move as fast as possible, because that's what everyone else is doing. So this is how I say, this is my
But that soft skill doesn't come easy, right? Like it's very difficult for someone to push that, specifically if there are not as many champions with you. It can sometimes become very lonely being a product manager who wants to change a lot of stuff. Is there any way people can just like fast track their skill set, or at least that ability to convince more people, create that general sense of motion?
I think the only way to do that is shipping. There's no other answer. It's all about either partnering with
Demonstrating.
the people that can help you ship something, or using the tools that give you the independence and the autonomy to create and ship. As I said, like a prototype, proof of concept, or a production product is worth 1,000 Jira epics or issues. It's worth 1,000 decks or business analysis or business cases. So I'd say like getting the skills is all about getting your hands dirty, building it, trying it out, being unafraid that is the best product in the market or even working is just a way of you gaining the skill and proving a point. And if people see the progress you can make, keep in mind, the larger the organization, the more established is the expectation of progress, right? Larger companies expect progress to be much slower, take a lot of time, require a lot of resources, people, have a lot of discussions and meetings. But with this new paradigm, you can go so much faster. You can ship so much more with so much less resources and people that you're going to shock that established paradigm or perception, right? So I'd say that's the only way.
Wow. Andre, I have to ask you one thing. So go all the way back into your career. All the way, when I say all the way, that's like pre-Kitch, pre-Uniplaces, pre maybe even Google days. And as you reflect back on everything, what was there something very pivotal that shaped you the way you have become today? As in, like, how did Andre become Andre? Like, what's the story there?
Yeah, so I think not pivotal, but I think the moment you decide to unleash your curiosity, and this is typically the advice I give to students, the ones I teach, as we're finishing kind of the trimester or the semester, is your relentless curiosity when tied to a bias for action, to actually go and find out. Like you like something, you want to know more about something, go and find out. Can you do something with that piece of knowledge? Execute on that. So that relentless curiosity of finding things out and then exposing yourself and be a bit unafraid of the ignorance and the unknown, I think it's something that I always carried with me. And I think it's the perfect mindset for anyone in product, because you're always going with the mindset of, I don't know, the customer has a problem, I'm here to be a servant of a product that solves it. Maybe I don't know the code, I don't know the design, I don't know the actual solution, so I'm blissfully ignorant, but that's good. That's actually a weapon. So I'd say I use this as kind of everything I've done ties to this way of moving and progressing and executing. And yeah, I'd say that is a correlation with everything I've done.
Any learning in general, other than whatever we talked about, that you would love to share with everyone who's listening in today? And we have a lot of data, folks. So maybe add in a couple of viewpoints on how you look at the space of data.
Yeah, so I'd say it ties to data, because I'd say the biggest learning is the 1% progress every day. You see a lot of organizations and you feel like things are moving so slow. And often it's not tightly connected to people themselves. It has to do a lot of other things. But if more people actually embrace the 1% progress every single day, and if they're able to quantify what progress is and to actually break it down in what 1% of that progress looks like, and then be able to quantify, did I actually move 1% more today? I mean, the impact over time is insane, because it compounds, right? Like 1% of a larger pie is much more than when it was just a small slice. So I would say this is my biggest learning: is you want to finish not every week, not every month, but every single day with looking back into the day and say, did I move 1% more compared to yesterday? And be relentless at wanting the 1%. And if tomorrow I didn't move 1%, I need to find a way of moving 2% on the other day to compensate. And yeah, you're going to get to the end of the week extremely tired, but you're going to look back and feel, wow, this week was actually great. We moved. And it's that common phrase of like, the days are long, but the years are short. Imagine a short year of 1% every single day, how much you can actually do. And you'll become a beacon of progress within any organization, small, large, massive. People really reward those who are able to not only show, but actually execute 1% more every single day.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. And I think the version of the days are long, the years are short that I really resonate with is we often underestimate what we can do in a decade and overestimate what we can do in a year.
Yeah.
It's a lovely quote. But Andre, this has been a pleasure. I was looking forward to doing this chat for a very long time. To anyone who's listening in and wants to chat with you, where can they reach out? Of course, I will hyperlink everything.
Yeah, LinkedIn is the place I'm most active, and check 1monthpm.com. It's a live product university helping everyone get the skill set to become a bulletproof PM. So that's it.
Awesome. Thank you so much for doing this, Andre. I had a blast. I hope we get to do this in another format sometime again and hopefully in person. Thank you so much.
Appreciate the invite again, Vikram. Best of luck to your endeavors as well.
Awesome. Folks, if you're listening in, we have a lot of interesting episodes lined up as well. This was Andre Albuquerque for all of you, but we have a lot many possibilities. If you want to see anyone else, please let us know. And more than that, please drop some love. Let us know what you think about the show, what you'd like us to discuss more about. Thank you. We'll keep seeing you in the next episode. Bye-bye.